Hello and welcome everyone to Kitaabi baatein, and we'll starting with this session soon with Stuti Changle. She's just joining us very soon. So Stuti has joined, and hi Stuti, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Great. So welcome Stuti. I think it's 5:02. I think we can start the session.
Sure, we can. I can
All right.
hear you.
So
I can hear you and I can see you clearly. And I can see that other people
all
have
right.
also joined in. So maybe we can
Great.
now start. Hi, everyone. Hello,
Yes.
who's
Absolutely.
joining in?
All right. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Kitaabi baatein. I'm Abhishek, also known as wale Bhayya. And my guest today is a best-selling author, Stuti Changle, and she has come up with her latest book, Where the Sun Never Sets, about a week back, and she'll be talking about that book as well as other books and about things in general. So before we start, I would like to give a very brief introduction of Stuti for the benefit of the viewers. So Stuti is a national best-selling author. She has very recently launched her third book, Where the Sun Never Sets. Stuti has a master's degree in management from IMI New Delhi. She quit her job to inspire people by sharing life-changing stories. She made her TV debut in 2019 as a host of the TV series Karke Dikhayenge. Stuti wrote her first poem at the age of 11, a poem about rain and her emotions for monsoon. She read it knowing in her heart that it was a math exam and not an English exam the next day, and I must say it was quite courageous at your end. Stuti has sailed to the Andaman. She has camped with Indian Jawans in Arunachal Pradesh. She has scuba dived in the Indian Ocean. She has swum with the dolphins in the Mediterranean and floated free for hours in the Atlantic, and wishes to travel the world before she dies. So, Stuti, I think going by your website, there's so much to talk about that I think the entire session would be spent on that. But I think I should take a pause here, and if you can introduce yourself in your own words.
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Stuti Changle, your favorite author. This is something that I am claiming from my side because I'm assuming that a lot of people from my Instagram are going to join in. And today we're going to talk about my new book, which is
The Sun Never Sets.
Where the Sun Never Sets. And yes, a lot of you might have already received your copies. Yeah. And my other two books, like, You Only Live Once and On the Open Road. And a lot of you would have now received your copies. In fact, I'm so glad that I've started receiving the, feedback of the book and people have started reading this new one. So if you have any questions about my new book or any of my previous books, feel free to jump in. This is like, a candid conversation with Abhishek, where obviously I'm going to take all the questions that come my way. But then if you ask any questions, please drop them down in the comments and we'll definitely take them up. Right, Abhishek?
Absolutely. All of you want to ask a question, you can just write it in the comment box and I will read it for Stuti to answer. Great.
Okay, so I mean, we can start with the...
Absolutely. If you can have a brief introduction about you, as I said, there's a lot to talk about you, to know about you. If you were to describe yourself, how would you go about it?
Okay, if I were to describe myself. So, hi guys, I am an author. And I started my journey back in 2016 when I wrote my first book, On the Open Road. I have a huge past, like Abhishek has already mentioned in the live. I've done engineering, then I went for MBA, then I've done my job for some time and realized that no, writing is something which truly is my passion and is something that I'd want to do, until the day I die. And that's when I decided to take that jump, make that jump. And I wrote my first book. It published in 2017. It was a self-published book, so a lot of people here might not know, but my journey started as a self-published author. And then eventually, when the two books did well, I was acquired by Penguin Random House. Still grateful for that. And now my third book is out, which is called Where the Sun Never Sets. Apart from writing, I've done a lot of other things, like I've hosted a TV show, and I've taken up freelance assignments, God knows what. And the true reason being that in the beginning, it's very difficult to sustain, just as a writer. But I'm happy that now I'm in a happy place. I have 3 books and here's to many more that are going to come.
Absolutely. So Stuti, it's your third book. You have already established yourself as a best-selling author, and of course, I have no doubt, having read your book, I have no doubt this third one is also going to be a bestseller. And you are someone, you said you're passionate about writing since childhood, passionate about reading, as like you wrote your first poem at the age of 11. I remember I was learning to tie my shoelaces at the age of 11, and you wrote a poem at 11, that too a day before exam, which was very courageous. So but become writing or reading for pleasure, and writing your first book, dealing with publishers, plotting those ideas, what should be the storyline, talking to publishers, how did that journey been from being a reader who reads for pleasure to becoming an established writer? How do you describe that journey, especially regarding your first book? As you said, it was initially a self-published, and then you got in touch with Penguin, and they accepted, and you started writing for them. So how has that journey been?
Okay, I think that has been quite a journey and quite a long journey. So, one of the first problems that every author faces is that you read a lot of books, and when you read books, you find yourself in them. So, you know that, okay, this is something that I also want to do, or maybe I can also do, and I want to write these kind of stories. So, I think for every author, one of the very initial inspirations that, strikes you is when you start reading. And like you mentioned, it happened with me as well. Now, it's not that easy. You've read a book, you want to write, but the problem is that we're always seeking validation from others.
Yes.
So until and unless somebody gives us that little nudge or that little push, or, somebody encourages us, it's very hard for us to carry on with, having a self-validation for our own selves and go ahead and write your first book. So I think that journey becomes very long.
Absolutely.
You're getting my point. It becomes very long because you're looking for someone else to validate you, and then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to write a book. And that's one of the top reasons why most of us, being such voracious readers, and we want to write good books, but we end up writing nothing. And that's something which happened to me as well.
True.
So I think I wrote my first, like you mentioned, when I was 11 years old, I wrote my first poem, but I was seeking this validation all the time. And that's why I never went on and finished my first work. But eventually I did, get that little nudge from people around me. And I told myself that, okay, this is something that I'm going to do because I love it and I want to do it. I mean, it just doesn't make a difference if I sell a copy or not. And I think that's where you finish your first work.
Absolutely.
Because if you're always seeking validation, the problem is that initially you will get none. And that way, the journey is going to go on forever. So I think that was a very defining moment for me, or a very defining time for me, when I decided that I am going to write no matter what, whether or not I'm getting any sort of validation. And that took me a long time, because this happened in 2016 when I was already 23. So, 11 to 23, I've just wasted thinking that I'm going to write, while I could have written a lot of books. These days, there's so many young authors who in their teenage start writing. And by the time they reach 23, 24, they're already very polished. So writing, like any other thing, is something which is going to improve if, there's more experience added to it.
Absolutely.
So I did waste that time, but I'm happy that in 2016 I did make a move. So yeah, it was a long journey. And from then on, obviously there's been no looking back. But to get to a traditional publisher was something which I was just mentioning, a very long journey again, because it took me almost 3.5 years to get there. And again, one of the, defining things about that time in my life was that I did not give up. And I was like, okay, I'm going to publish it. So I was very okay self-publishing it, because in the end, my goal was to reach out to readers, which is something that finally happened. People started writing, liking the book, and then, the rest happened. So yeah, it's been a long journey that way.
Absolutely. And I think the publisher point which you mentioned, I think all the new authors have faced this in some part of their career, because you are someone who's not known to people. So you're coming without a pedigree, without a track record. So it's natural on the part of publishers to be a bit, skeptical about your likely success. But I want to know one thing, as I've read on your website that you sold thousands of copies as a self-published book. So I think all aspiring writers would like to know the secret, that how did you manage to sell thousands of copies? And if you'd like to tell us, as long as it is not a business secret which you want to hide. So how did you manage, even in self-publishing, thousands of copies?
It's not a business secret, but to be honest, it is a secret even for me, because it's not that I did not put in a lot of effort with my first book.
Right.
I did that, but with You Only Live Once, I mean, I just don't know. Maybe it was you being at the right place at the right time. Things
Right.
just clicked, you know. And I think the lockdown played a very huge part here. So I
Absolutely.
think when the pandemic happened, my book released in February 2020, and by March 2020 there was this huge lockdown. And in April or May, the first lockdown was lifted when people had started ordering the non-Amazon and Flipkart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that time actually helped me a lot, because I mean, I was talking to one of the retailers as well in Delhi. Recently, I was on a tour, and he was telling me that the readership has gone up. Even the
Yes.
retailers feel that the readership has gone up, not just in the online stores, but in the offline stores as well. Because people are now more and more of, you know, getting back to their long lost interest of reading books, and they are reading new books. So
Absolutely.
I think that pandemic thing, coupled with the book releasing at that time and a little bit of marketing strategies that would have worked here and there, it kind of, you know, became a huge thing. But let me tell you this, it did not happen overnight. So with my books, I'm telling you something, nothing happens overnight. I am someone who believes in this childhood saying, which is like, slow and steady wins the race. So you need to be slow and steady, and things need to organically pick up, because once they've organically picked up, there's no way they're going to go back.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think, I mean, it's hard to explain that what would be that one thing that worked.
Right.
But I think it's always a culmination of a lot of parameters that work in your favor, and which happened back in 2020. The strongest thing which I believe now is that You Only Live Once has a very positive word of mouth.
Yes. Yes.
So in the initial 2 or 3 months, it was like going okay. It was not selling thousands of copies, maybe few hundreds, I would say. But once people started loving the book and they started sharing with each other, they started putting up these stories on their social media, and I think then the virality happened. You know, then the virality came in. In fact, you won't believe, now that Where the Sun Never Sets is out, I still get so many messages, you know, about You Only Live Once, and people are still making reels on You Only Live Once, still posting about it. So I think in the long run, one thing that I figured out is that the content has to be good. The content has to be relatable. People need to love that, because books is something that you take on recommendation, right, Abhishek?
Absolutely.
You won't buy a book because you saw Facebook ad. In the end, you're going to buy a book when someone says, okay, this book is amazing and it created a difference in my life. Correct. So I think that is something which happened with You Only Live Once. And I hope that happens with Where the Sun Never Sets. And I'm very excited because the initial reviews are very promising.
Well, promising. Absolutely. I'm sure it will happen. So coming to your books, all three books, I noticed, having read all three, I noticed some common themes, as in it's about self-discovery, it's about following your dreams, it's about following your passion, and going by your life. You know, you as someone who has experienced, done many things in life. So can we say that your books are at least partly, if not fully, a reflection of your life?
Yes.
A person who believes in, you know,
I think that yes, I think yes will be the most honest answer, because in the end, I think every writer, when you sit down and write, there's a part of you, you know, that reflects, that comes in your writing. And I think with me, all these experiences that I've had, they've kind of given me a lot of content in that sense. Not just content where I'm, you know, writing or describing a place. So you would say, you know, it's easier for Stuti to talk about Goa because she's been to Goa so many times. Yes, it is. But not just that description of Goa. Also the characters that I met. So also the people that I've spoken with. And there comes the relatability quotient. People say that your books are very relatable. Why? Because my characters are people who are real people I've met and taken inspiration from. So I think of all the things, the most important thing is the characters that I've met. I have also written it in my bio on my website that, you know, the characters that I've met on the open road have actually sort of inspired me in some way or the other. And they've ended up becoming characters of my books. And that's why people sort of feel that, okay, this is someone that I relate with. So, when I talk about Iti from my new book, or I talk about Ricky from You Only Live Once, or I talk about Rami from On the Open Road, these three characters are kind of becoming iconic because people just feel that there's so much relatability quotient with these
Yes.
characters. And it's because they are a part of me, to be honest. And then the rest of it is obviously the inspiration that I've taken from real people. So I think that is something which makes my characters very special and unique. And that's the most important thing that I've gotten from my experiences that I've had, while I've traveled.
Absolutely. I think this relatability, especially when it comes to fiction writing about people, is very important for people to actually relate it to, themselves, related to their lives, so that strikes a chord that creates a bond between, you can say, the reader and the author itself, or the book itself. So I
Yes.
completely agree with you. So coming to characters, I would like to know, or I would like you to tell about Rami, because Rami finds mentioned in all your books, and I think it's something special about Rami, which is, you talked about it, but what exactly is Rami now, in your own words, if you'd like to tell?
I think Rami is a very special part of my books, and he's a part of this Stuti Changle's universe of books. So he finds a place on the open road. Obviously, that's where you get to know who Rami is, and then Rami is a part of lives. Because all of these things are happening in a similar timeline. So, it's a similar set of universe that we have. And so Rami is a part of all the three books. I think Rami is a very special character because Rami is a part of everyone's personality.
Yes.
And it's the other side of our personality that we sometimes lose our touch with. And it's that part of our personality which, no matter how hard you try, persists and stays. So you remember when we met in Bahari Sons, we spoke about, everyone having this other side to their personality.
Yes.
They might or they might not pursue that, but it is there. So in your case, we are talking about how you have a corporate job, but that is not something that defines you in totality.
Right.
You are someone who loves reading books.
Absolutely.
And you're into art, which is something completely different from what you're doing in your day-to-day life. And I think when you touch base with this person, you're actually touching base with your own Rami. And I think everyone has that Rami.
Absolutely.
So that's why Rami is the most special character, and he will maybe continue to find a place in all of my books, and he's done it so far. Like in all the three books, he has a mention, and it's because I want to remind people of that other side of their personality, and I want to give them a reminder or a message that it is there. I mean, there's still time. If you want, you can go for it full time. If not, why not just let it be part-time, but just let it be there and enjoy yourself, because you've lived your life to the fullest only when you've explored the extremes. And while you have your routine lives, don't lose your touch with your Rami. Live that side of your personality. It is going to enhance you. It is going to take you places. It is going to make you experience new things. And that is something which makes Rami a very special part of my books. And he continues to be in all the three books. In fact, he also finds a mention in the new one, which is Where the Sun Never Sets.
The Sun Never Sets. So coming to top, living your passion and living your dreams, and as in your books, it's also, you have written, it's, when we talk about following our dreams, it meets with certain resistances, especially part of our parents, and many times they also have some valid points to make, like in the Where the Sun Never Sets. The Stuti's father says that these passions, his writing doesn't pay bills, which is also a reality. So you can say, yes, finding passion, but yes, ultimately it boils down to, paying the bills and everything. So as someone who is also, speaks on motivation and all, what advice would you like to give to people who want to follow their passion, but they are facing these constraints, whether monetary, whether family, or any other kind of constraints? So how do they strike that that balance between what they are doing and what they want to do?
See, the most important thing, Abhishek, here is to not forget that there has to be practicality to every decision that you're going to make. So when I was young, I used to say, oh, go ahead, follow your passion, it doesn't matter, nothing else matters. Okay, that is there, but to certain extent, like you just mentioned, that Iti's father in Where the Sun Never Sets also reminds her of the fact that if she wants to be a writer, it's not going to be an easy journey, and she might not be able to pay her bills. And I think that's true. That's true for a lot of creative professions, and it's true for a lot of things that people want to do, and that's the reason they don't go ahead and do it. So my advice here would be that, like, so I'll give an example from You Only Live Once. Like, we have Arav there, okay, and Arav is someone who is not very privileged in that sense.
Right.
See, sometimes it's easier for people with privilege to do that because you come with that kind of a financial backing, or you come with that kind of a support system where if plan A doesn't work, you have a plan B to fall back on. But I don't think each one of us, especially in India, comes with that luxury to, or have that privilege to fail. So I think in that sense, Arav makes a very classic example where he is working with a bank, and part-time he's taking up stand-up comedy as a profession or as an alternate career option. And we see in the end of You Only Live Once that it's only when he is at a position where he's doing so well that he doesn't need to do anything else. So there's kind of phasing out, a little bit of phasing out, and then phasing in, and then getting into the new part of your journey, rather than just making that jump. And I think I did that personally. I made that jump, but nobody knows the whole story, right? In the back end, I also had to suffer for some choices that I made at that time, because see, money is a hard reality.
Yes.
And you need to figure out in the longer run that how can your passion actually be your profession, and how can it also help you pay your bills. So in that sense, Iti's dad or anyone's dad out there is not wrong. They are right.
Yes.
And you can't be immature or childish enough to not acknowledge that. But yes, it doesn't also mean that there's no way out. There can be a way out. Like we took Arav's example. So
absolutely,
that can be a way.
Yes. And again, in your books, some more common things which I have come across is, I guess, your affection, your love for the institution of family, which is very well reflected in your books. Your affection for your friends, and you also have dealt with loss in your books, loss in like family members, like in this. So what's the inspiration behind taking up these things, love for family, but at the same time dealing with loss, and of course having a great affection for your friends?
Okay, so I think personally it also is because Stuti is writing the book, and as a person, Stuti is someone who's very family and friends and very people oriented. So my life revolves around people. That is something that I'm proud of, and it's something that I derive my happiness from. And I really love, to be connected to people. So I think that's one of the reasons why family, or mention of friends, or mention of, close relationships, why they find such important, why they form such an important part of my book. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why that happens. I think that's about it. I can't think, but I think I deal with loss as a theme because see, while my books are very positive, they are inspirational, they are feel good, they are on the other side of the spectrum, you can't not talk about reality. See, loss is a real, very, very real part of our lives, right? Who has not dealt with loss? Everyone has, in some form or the other. And not just the positive things that happen in our life define us, the losses that become a part of our journey are also a very important part of our lives, and they define us. So I think while it's a little harder topic to talk about, I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about it loud and open and clear, because there's a little stigma. People don't want to talk about loss. So, even on social media, if you'll see, people just want to talk about all the positive things that are happening in their life. This happened, that happened. Okay, I ate this most amazing cake in the world, or I was in this most amazing roller coaster ride. You apply filters to yourself. You want to look the most beautiful, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about the other side. But the truth is that whose life is perfect? Nobody's life is. Everybody is dealing with loss or negativity or something which is not so promising as you're showing on social media in some part or the other. So why not talk about it? Why not make people feel that, okay, you're a part, this was a part of your journey, it's been a part of my journey too, and let's help each other as humans, or let's help each other. So it's sort of practicing empathy via my stories, where I say that tum akele nahi ho. This happens to everyone, this has happened to me. So, and that's the reason I also talk about. So in Where the Sun Never Sets also, if you would have, since you've read the book, you would have noticed that I've spoken about social media and the problem with social media, why it is such a, it sometimes is a very nasty place to be in, because everybody's lying. So
everybody's lying. No one shares their sorrow on Facebook, but only that joy is usually.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah. Yes, nobody talks about rejections. Everybody is getting the best job out there. Like all the good things are happening, but then that gives you a false sense of reality, and I think that's alarming.
Absolutely. So I remember a meme sent to me, and it was like that Facebook, that this Insta, and another app is about the makeup ki dukaan, and LinkedIn is about the Sharma ji ka ladka, because it tells you what promotion other guy is getting. So yes, that's the reality of social media. If you open LinkedIn and everyone's saying that, dude, everyone's getting promoted, what am I doing? So that way, yes, it happens. It exactly the way you are telling it. So coming to the third book, I mean, as I have read all three of your books, I have great respect for your work, but undoubtedly, with due respect to the two books, I found the third to be the best in these three books. And as I mentioned in my review, this is a book which I would say everyone can relate to. So that is to a large extent true for your other books as well. But as I would say, dealt with more contemporary things like Corona and everything. So that's, in that way, you can say perhaps a bit more relatable. So what would you like to tell the viewers about, your book, especially for those who haven't read about this, the latest book, The Sun Never Sets?
Okay, so I think, like you just mentioned it, this is something which is very true about Where the Sun Never Sets, that everybody can find themselves in this story in some form or the other, because it deals with very real themes around us. Yes. It deals with family, it deals with friendship, it deals with the pandemic, it deals with it deals with love, it deals with friendships, it deals with loss. It just in totality deals with everything that is very real, and something which each one of us faces. So I mean, see, for me, it's, I'm glad that you loved my third book the most. But for me, these are my three babies, so I cannot compare that which one is best, or if people can expect more than You Only Live Once, less than that, or more than On the Open Road. But all I can say is that this book is a diary. It's a diary of Iti, and it's a very, very honest account of someone who's recounting their life experiences. And the most interesting part of the book is that while most of us cannot go back and change things, Iti does find a way to closure, and that helps us. I mean, that helps her, and that's going to help anyone who reads the book, because in life sometimes the biggest problem is that all of us are running away from some or the other parts of our past, and we don't want to close it. We don't want a closure. But this story will definitely inspire you to find that closure in your life, and it will have an impact in your present and future, because sometimes not having a closure in the past continuously impacts your present, and because it's impacting your present, it has to have that effect on your future. But here you'll also find ways to go ahead, find that closure. And just like You Only Live Once and On the Open Road, Where the Sun Never Sets is also a story which will actually help you find hope in the darkest of times. Absolutely. And this is something that we've written on the book cover as well, and we feel it is going to do that because it is set in one of the most difficult times in the recent past, which is the pandemic. But still, when you read the book, it's a very feel-good story, and it's going to help you find closure. So yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why you should go ahead and read Where the Sun Never Sets, and that's why I am very positive that it's going to have that kind of an impact on you.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned in my review, that the book is as interesting as the title itself. The title is something which attracts you towards the book, but as you read, you'll actually get the sense of what's there. And that closure part, I think that again is very important, because we see lot many people who have never, who kind of remain a victim of their past, no matter where they are
Yes.
today. But in many ways, and it's about many people, not just those people whom you may say that, those who may regard as unsuccessful, that you just keep thinking about your past, you don't do anything. But I've seen personally in my life, as well as what we get to know through the media, that there are people who somewhat remain stuck with the past, and what happens later on, you become a victim of your past. So that way, I think the book sends out this message very clearly, that there's absolutely no point in being a victim of your past, and some way or the
Yes.
other you have to get to that closure, which your book definitely mentions. And once again, I think the corona is something which you talked about, is something which affected us in every way, especially the second wave, which was a disastrous one, and many
Yes.
people lost their loved ones. And but the impact was not restricted to only losing your loved ones. It actually changed the life for a lot many of us. I mean, entire generation, even our parents say that they have not seen any such thing like this, wherein
Right.
everything is just closed, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's
And the
definitely
biggest thing, and the biggest thing, Abhishek, that happened later on was that you started becoming grateful for such little things in your life.
absolutely
Like, there's a line where Iti says that at some point she wanted to travel the world, do this, do that. Now, just the sheer ability of hers to drive to office every day makes her happy.
absolutely,
And this is something that she had taken for granted until and unless she realized that one day she might not be able to even leave her room. And I
exactly,
think that's the level of change in our mindset, or that's the level of shift in our perspectives, is
absolutely,
something that happened post the lockdown. And definitely we've all there's no denying to it that we've all dealt with loss in some way or the other.
absolutely.
But see, life went on. That's the truth. Like, we're
That's it.
sitting in 2022 now, and we're having this conversation because life did go on from there on, and that's what is the truest thing about life, that it goes on. And that way the book touches on these topics as well. And that's why I was saying that Where the Sun Never Sets is a very, very real and relatable story. It's just something happening around you. It's not something out of the blue, or anything very, very charismatic, very fantasy world.
Right.
It's a very real story, and it's a series of very real incidences, is what I
Absolutely,
say.
absolutely. So three books. I think it may be a bit premature to ask, but three books already, and you have, like, the last one is a bit different in the sense it's about a diary. So are we going to see something new in your fourth book? Will it be some memoirs kind of thing? Will it be something other than discovering or finding yourself? Any plans in mind? Like what?
So
How it could be?
I'll be honest here, Abhishek. I've started writing my fourth book,
Okay.
and yes. So the format so far is obviously not a diary. I'll try something newer this time. So you see, with On the Open Road and You Only Live Once, I had these multiple character perspectives that played a part in the entire book, that were a part of the plot, which made it interesting because everybody was telling the story from their side.
Yes.
And with You Only Live Once, I wanted, with Where the Sun Never Sets, I wanted to try something new, and that's the reason the diary format, because I thought reading someone's diary is a very intimate thing. In fact, writing a diary is a very intimate thing. So
Yeah.
it's definitely going to bring a different kind of interest level when somebody says that do not touch my diary. You want to do that, and you want to read.
You want to do
So I think that's one of the reasons why I chose it to be in a diary format. Now with the next one, I'm definitely going to try something new. It's something that I know, but honestly, so far I have not finalized anything yet. So the plot is clear to me, who the characters are going to be, what the story is about is clear to me. But the way it will finally be executed is something that is still, under process of work in progress, because I want to do something innovative yet again.
Okay.
But I've not figured it out that what that innovation is going to be. So for that, I'm reading a couple of books, understanding what can be the other ways of executing the same old story. But yes, it is definitely going to be about self-discovery, because it is something which is very, very central or very, very core to my books or my theme or my writing. And I will continue with that theme because my readers love it more than everything. I love it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that.
So you have, again, you mentioned you have read a lot of books in your childhood and from childhood reading several authors. So any favorite authors or any favorite books, and also what are you reading these days?
Okay. So as a kid, I would pick up all the books that were, being sold for cheap, to be very honest, because I had a very tight budget. I think we spoke about that when we met.
Yes.
And it used to be more of these roadside patriwalas and all, whatever they used to sell, I used to pick them up. And you see, most of them have Sidney Sheldon, they have Robin Sharma, they have, Paulo Coelho. And this has been since eternity. Like, this has been since the beginning of time, I feel. Because
it is.
जब से मैं जा रही हूँ, मैं तो यही देख रही हूँ कि यही मिलता है. So, those books definitely, the mass paperback, or, this is something that I've read a lot. So as a teenager, I used to love Sidney Sheldon books because I had never known the thrill of reading, there was this thrill. Every story came with a suspense. Somewhere there was cyber crime happening, somewhere cyber stalking happening. In that time in 90s, even those things were like very, very new and very interesting. Acha, aise bhi hota hai kya? So Sidney Sheldon is something that I've read a lot as a teenager. If I have to pick up one book that has always been my favorite and will continue to be on the top of my list, it's a book called Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. It released back in 90s. There's also a movie, a Brad Pitt movie, which was based on the same script. I think it's a lovely book. It talks about so much. Of all, it talks about the problems of our world, the world that we are living in, which we assume is very modern and very amazing. But it talks about the perils of capitalism in such a nice way, the kind of lives that people are leading these days. So I think that is one of my most favorite work of fiction so far. And what am I reading currently? To be honest, until the last week, I was reading something. I'm currently not reading anything. I'll be very honest here. It's because the book just released, Where the Sun Never Sets. So I'm still very busy, figuring out what are the things I can do with my book, and, how can I talk more about it, make it reach more readers. So my entire mind is occupied there. So it's very hard for me to unwind right now and pick up a good book and read. But hopefully soon I'm going to pick the next one.
Great. And so someone who has established herself as a best-selling writer in, I would say, just a few years, and with the 2 books, because third book is released only recently. So someone who has been there, done that, what advice would you like to give to aspiring writers?
Okay, so where the story began, so where our entire conversation began, that we are waiting for external validation so much that sometimes we're just waiting. And we are waiting and we are waiting and we are waiting and we are waiting forever. So the only inspiration to aspiring writers that I would like to, give is, don't wait, write. And if nobody is validating your work, become your own, validator for some time. I don't know if it's a word in the dictionary, but validate, self-validate before you go ahead out in the market and seek validation. I'll tell you why. Because there are 2 types of criticism. One is where people talk about your piece of writing and they say, how can it be better? If that kind of constructive criticism is coming your way, go ahead, take it. Then I won't say कि बस अपने आप को बोलते रहो कि मेरा काम तो बहुत अच्छा है, मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ता है. No. Take up that criticism. It's going to help you. But at the same time, sometimes it just people want to pull your leg. So it will more of be like, you're not a good writer. Now, see, there's nothing, this is a very vague sentence. You are not a good writer. Who was a good writer? And with every book, if you say that somebody is becoming a better writer, then obviously with their first book, they were not as good as they were with their third book. Everybody's learning, everybody's getting that experience. Just like in a job, you switch multiple jobs and you acquire skills and you go ahead with it. So there's no such sentence like you're not a good writer or you're a poor writer or you cannot write, don't even try. So this is something which is hitting someone personally, and if this kind of thing comes your way, just don't take it seriously. your self validation and confidence is very important, that this is something I love to do. Even if I'm not the best at it today, I am going to keep writing and I am going to get better. I think that's the kind of attitude one should have. So this is the only thing I'll tell you, that self validation is also very important.
Very important.
Just don't wait for others to validate you all the time, and write, have that confidence in your art. Right, that's the most important thing.
All right. So we'll now open it for the audience. Those who want to ask questions, please feel free to ask any question. You can write it in the comment box, and I will read it for Stuti to answer. So guys, any question, please questions in the comment box. So I see a lot of people have joined, so we do expect a good number of questions.
Okay, I'll just quickly scroll if I see something. Guys, you can ask anything if you want to about my new book, and even if it's about one of the older books. Actually, Abhishek, for some reason, I'm not able to scroll up. Has Instagram changed something with their...
I'm looking. Too many people have joined. So I'm just scrolling to see if there is any comment or any question which you might have missed. So, but
okay.
Huge
just see if you've missed something, because I'm unable to scroll for some reasons. I don't know, maybe because I'm the guest.
I can do it easily.
Okay, so please go ahead and see if there's something that we can take up. We'll take up right now.
This is not a question. This is from Ashita. Hi Stuti, loved your book. You only live once. Thank you for this. So it's a
Thank
message.
You, Ashita.
Yep, one of your fan. Okay, let me see the question now. I must say the people that joined the list is way too long. I don't know if it's 100, 150.
See, the TikTok generation, people want entertainment in 30 seconds. So people join, they go. So whosoever would be here right now, only then we can, hunt for a fresh question. Guys, please feel free. If there's anything you want to ask, go ahead.
Okay, so there's one question for now. That book from that bookworm guy. Does Stuti think as a reader while she is writing, or is it just focusing on the plot?
Okay. This is a good question. I'll be honest here. So when I'm writing it for the first time, when the first draft is still in progress, I think as a writer, I think like myself, and I write what I want to write. I don't, bother a lot about how it's going to come across or something. But I think in the second or the third revision of the book, when I read the book, I try to see it from a different lens, and I do try to analyze that if this kind of a piece of writing, or this kind of a paragraph is going to have some sort of impact in someone's life, and if there are some changes that are to be made, and they are to be made in the direction where the answer is going to be that yes, it is going to make a difference, then I will definitely consider changing it, and I do change it as well. So I think in the first go it's not so, but yeah, in the second or the third flow of the book, I do make sure that the readers also relate. But with me, when I sit down and write, it's not that I tell myself that okay, I'm going to write only if it's relatable, otherwise I'm not going to write. No, it just naturally comes to me and I pen it down.
Right. All right, so this answers the question. And any other question, guys? I can only see people joining. Please, if any questions you have to Stuti, please feel free to ask. I know we have discussed a lot, many things already, but okay, this is the same one. Okay, so
I think we have one question.
Yeah, it's like we're speaking our mind and hearts. So I believe many of my questions already got answered with this session. So I actually agree with this point. You are indeed speaking with our mind and heart, because many times you said that to be honest, I have not done this thing or I've done that. So when it's actually a rarity for people these days, and especially when you have almost a celebrity like status, that people know you and they want to portray themselves as something different, but yeah, as I said, it's rare to see people answering questions honestly.
Thank you, Kanika. I think that really boosted my confidence, and it did make my day. It's a good one. Thank you, Kanika. Thanks a lot for that.
So just to make sure not to hide anything, she is my wife, and she has
Oh,
joined. Yeah, just for the sake of everyone, though, because there's nothing to hide here. So she's my wife, and I asked
wow.
her to actually read your books,
So
and
both
she
of you all
started.
are readers. That's interesting. So both of you all are readers, like you exchange notes
She's
and all.
not
That's
that
very
much into
interesting.
reading, but I suggested her to read your books, and she
Oh wow!
started reading
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, she loved the way
Thank
you.
you.
All right. So another question from the bookworm guy. Also, follow-up question: does reading many books help her in writing in any way?
Yes, it does. It does. I mean, if when you read a lot of good books, when you consume a lot of content, obviously you're exercising your brain muscle, and you're getting to see certain stories and situations from multiple lenses, or in multiple perspectives. So I do believe that it helps, but there's also one thing that to some extent it also does not help. I'll tell you where. So if you start reading too much of one author in a very less amount of time, it might end up influencing your writing style,
Yes.
or
Yes.
it might end up influencing you in just one way. So what I'll say is that read a very diverse mix of books. Don't let
Yes.
any one thing get a lot onto you, because then what happens is that when you will sit down to write, if you're at all a writer, then the problem would be that while you're doing this naturally, or you're writing words naturally, it might be in the same tone as the other author that you've been
Yes. Yes.
obsessed with recently, and that might end up being a problem, because it might come across as plagiarism to the readers who are very loyal to this particular author. So when
Yes.
they read
Yes.
your work, they might not find that originality. So
Yes.
I do believe that read a lot, but make sure you're diversifying. And if you're a fiction author, while it's important to read fiction, read a lot of non-fiction also. It will
Yes.
help you with language, many other things, and at the same time it won't influence your writing style, so to
True.
quite an extent. So I think that is something practical that I do, and I believe that it helps you when you sit down and write.
Absolutely. All right. So okay. Again, interestingly, people still joining, but guys, yeah, it's a huge audience here. So any other questions before we call it a day? I can see it's 10 minutes to 6. So any other
Yes.
questions before we wrap it up? All right. Okay. I don't say. I think we can safe to call it a day then. So okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. This amazing answers. Looking forward to reading The Sun That Never Sets. Yeah. Yeah. Please do. That's what I would also recommend. Please do. It's
Thank you so
the
much.
full book.
The
All right. So
bookworm guy.
yeah.
I can just see your handle. I can't see your
Yeah.
name. So yeah, thank you
Book
so
form.
much.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks, Sudhi. It was lovely interacting with you, and all the best for your future books. And for third one, I know it's going to be bestseller. I don't doubt it at all. And I'm sure you'll keep writing such interesting books. And thank you everyone who has joined today. It was pleasure to have all of you here. And all right, then we'll call it a day. And thanks, Sudhi. Thanks again
Yeah.
for coming to my channel.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for having me over. And thank you, everyone who joined in. I think it's a Sunday evening and you all made time out for this live. That means a lot to us. Truly grateful for having you and everyone who's a fan here, who's a reader here. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. And I hope that my new book, Where the Sun Never Sets, is something that you love. The good part, I mean, the best part is that Abhishek loved it. So it was very easy for me to have this live. And I hope that everyone who picks it up finds themselves in this book and they love the book.
All right. Thanks. Thank you, Sudhi. And thank you, everyone. Have a good day.